So happy Friday, hope you have a killer weekend upcoming, but today we're taking a look at some more loadouts that you can give a shot here over the weekend and hopefully do well with. So today we're talking sheer statistics, TTK, the weapons with the fastest time to kill values, securing your kills and moving and grooving throughout Al Mazrah or Sheikah Island. Drop your thoughts down below on which of these you find most useful, and of course, if you're new, hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, and anything COD related. For now, let's jump into it. So let's get right into the thick of it here. The information today is pulled from sim.gg, a site that pulls data directly from the game files. So what the game presents in terms of values, that's what we have here. While we'll touch on the top 10, we're also going to show a little bit more and have a sort of cutoff here with it, because practicality comes into effect when we talk about these weapons. Some have those statistical values that end up putting them in that top 10, but in reality, you might not want to use them. So we'll showcase firstly the best TTK weapons and then shift that list around for some practicality and go into some builds. So the information presented is in the form of fastest achievable time to kill with shots to the chest. I'd wager that's probably the most reliable metric. You're not going to be hitting every single shot, headshot 100% of the time, but chest shots offer more area to work with and are much more achievable. So we'll be going from the fastest achievable TTK in those chest shots, as well as listing the furthest out that value will end up going in terms of damage range. So for sheer TTK rankings, it starts out with the RAAL MG as the fastest TTK weapon of 432 milliseconds all the way out to 41 meters. Then we have the FTac Recon coming in at 480 milliseconds to 42 meters, the Lachmann 762 at 488 milliseconds to 37 meters, the TAQ-M at 520 milliseconds all the way out to 53 meters, the RAPP at 525 milliseconds to 33 meters, the Chimera at 525 milliseconds to 23 meters, the Lachmann sub at 525 milliseconds to 8 meters, and finally the last weapon at the 525 millisecond range is the TAQ-V all the way out to 45 meters. And our final two in the top 10 here are the 5.56 Icarus at 539 milliseconds all the way out to 24 meters, and the LMS of 540 milliseconds to 48 meters. Now, of course, we do have other ones that follow very closely. The Sakin MG38 has a TTK of 552 milliseconds, outwards of 35 meters. The Kastov 74U as well as a 552 millisecond time to kill, but only outwards of 21 meters. And well, here's the rest as well that you can end up seeing with very close TTK values, but with those ranges shifting drastically. But okay, so which one of those then shift on over into the practical list? What is our top 10 that we can realistically see? Because some of those aren't too favorable of weapons. So how do we rearrange these to give ourselves a fighting chance in gunfights? This is where the subjective nature comes into play, but here's the 10 that I would choose. I would take the RAAL, the TAQ-M, the RAPP, the Chimera, the Sakin, the FTac Recon, the Lachmann 762, the PDSW, the Lachmann sub, and the Kastov 74U, with of course a backlog of quite a few weapons that can do well and hold their own, but that's where I draw that top 10 in practicality. So that said, let's move on over into the builds. The RAAL, of course, is one that we've talked about plenty of times. We can breeze past this. That comes along with the 21-inch EXF Rhino barrel, the FTac Reaper muzzle, the XRK Dune grip, the Stip 40, and the SZ SR07 or the AMOP V4 optic. Honestly, I'm trending more so towards the AMOP as of late, but entirely up to you. Then we have the TAQ-M, which is, yes, a semi-auto weapon, which we haven't really talked about too much here on the channel, but for that build, I'd recommend the Sakin Shred 40 or something like the Polarfire S or ZLR Talon 5, something in that regard. Then I'd put the Edge 47 grip on, the 15 or the 20 round mag, depending on if you want a slightly faster ADS versus not, the FSS combat grip, and then an optic of some kind since you kind of want to be using this at more of a distance. You can use things like the AMOP V4, but of course, if you want to take it for a more so longer range weapon, I'd recommend something like the Forge TAC Delta optic, a 5.5 times magnification. And yes, I know that gives away your position a little bit more with that scope glint, but it comes down to preference. If you want something a bit closer range, sort of in between what we'd see with the AMOP V4 and that 5.5 times optic, you can end up using the Schlager 3.4 times, which is a 3.4 time magnification, or the VLK 4 times optic, which is 4 times. So there's definitely options to use with that. Then I'd recommend the RAPP. This one very similar to the Sakin and the RAAL in terms of builds that we've touched on before, but you can build it normally. This one's actually pretty viable in most engagements with those sort of medium to long range weapons. For this, I'd build it with the Sakin or Sakin Shred 40, the Edge 47 grip, the Lachmann TCG 10, the Mir Recoil 56 factory stock, and then the AMOP V4 optic. For this one, no barrel is needed. I'll take some of that focus and make it on the control aspect of the build with other attachments instead. So definitely recommend that one in terms of a nice build for the RAPP. Beyond that, the Chimera is the next weapon we'll talk about here in that sheer and practical TTK. This one, it really depends on how you want to build it, for close quarters or medium range play. We've talked about this before in, I want to say it was the Season 2 builds for Ashika Island, but same builds apply here with that, where we have a medium range and a close range build. The medium range build, I'd recommend the 10-inch SA Phoenix barrel, the Lockshot KT85, the Edge 47 grip, the 45 round mag, and an optic of your choice. If I'm on Ashika Island, I'm taking the Cronin Mini Pro. Al Mazrah, I'll probably take the AMOP V4, but if you're playing close quarters, it's something that's like a pocket SMG but in an AR build, I take the 6.5-inch EXF barrel, the Lockshot KT85, the Edge 47 grip, the 45 round magazine, and the Bruin flash grip. The biggest differences between these, of course, are you're choosing faster ADS and sprint to fire times in that close range build as opposed to the medium range build. So up to you on how you want to end up working that. Next, the Sakin MG38. We just talked about this build, same applies here at this, that being the 20-inch Bruin Silver Series barrel, the ZLR Talon 5, the Bruin Warrior LMG underbarrel, the Bruin Q900 grip, and the AMOP V4. You can breeze past that one. Still, I think is one that's going to take the place of the RPK in terms of a practical LMG meta here at this. The RAAL absolutely is up there, but in terms of overall usability, I think the Sakin may edge it out ever so slightly just because it's a bit more mobile, but very comparable. Then the FTac Recon is one that is a little different. I've personally not used the FTac Recon before investigating the TTKs here, so it was one that took a little bit of getting used to with it. I think that maybe right when Warzone launched, I took it very sparingly, but the FTac Recon, this I'd recommend the 419 EXF barrel, the FTac Reaper, the Edge 47 grip, the Sakin ZX grip, and the Forge TAC Delta 4 optic. Again, optic really comes down to your preference. For this, I'd use it for more medium to long range, but you don't have to. You can easily also sacrifice that Reaper muzzle for the 15 round mag if you'd like to have a little bit more security that you'll have more shots as opposed to just the default 10 rounds, but up to you. Then another weapon that is a semi-auto is the Lachmann 762. This one is an interesting build that has a bit more room for versatility or perhaps personal flair on it if you want to adjust certain things for your own playstyle. For this, I'd recommend though the ZLR Talon, the Edge 47 grip, the 30 round magazine, the Lachmann TCG10, and the AMOP V4 as an optic. This one, unlike the FTac Recon and the TAQ-M, I'm not playing for as long range with this build. For this, it's something that I kind of want to get in the mix here at that. 30 rounds to work with and a relative 3 to 4 shot kill. It is something that you can get in the mix with it a little bit. So for that, I'd recommend that build. Next, the PDSW, an SMG that is kind of surprising. It might be something that you see in the meta here upcoming in the next couple of weeks to months, but it is one that might be a little bit different than what we've discussed on the channel here and what you may have seen elsewhere since the launch of Warzone 2. For this, I'd recommend the FTac Series 9 14.5-inch barrel, the Bruin Pendulum, the GR33 light rail, the Bruin Q900 grip, and the Cronin Mini Pro optic. This one, I'm using this built specifically just for the quick, snappy nature in close quarters combat. Damage range is a little bit more inconsequential in this build. I'm not really favoring that. I want to be able to get my gun up, or if I'm hip firing, you can do that too, but making sure that close quarters, you're shredding through enemies with that sheer fire rate and the damage that it ends up affording. Then the final two weapons we'll talk about are the Lachmann sub, starting us off here. Another weapon that is only really used for close quarters. We talked about the Lachmann sub. Its fastest TTK that you can achieve is unfortunately only out to 8 meters. So it is something that you see a drop off steadily and then pretty steep as time progresses and as that distance goes over. But in close quarters, you'll absolutely shred through enemies. And we've talked about this build before, both on Ashika Island and I think last week when we covered our new top 10 loadouts of Season 2. For this, I'd recommend the VLK Laser 7 milliwatt, the Lachmann Pulsar Barrel, the Lock Grip Precision 40, the 40 round mag, and the Lachmann TCG10. This build, seriously, love it, have a blast with it, give it a try. And finally, the last weapon we'll talk about here in terms of our practical top 10 is the 74U, the Kastov 74U. This is one we've talked about before, but is again, one that you can kind of realistically use as sniper support, maybe double AR meta in Ashika Island. You do have options, but for this, I'd recommend the FSS OLV Laser, the BR209 Barrel, the Markiv R7 Stock, the Demo X2 Grip, which gives you a bit more to afford in recoil control. We've kitted everything out for our sprint to fire and ADS options in the barrel, laser, and stock. So if you want a bit more control on that, Demo X2 is awesome in that regard. And then the 45 round mag to keep you in the action a little bit longer. But That said, that is the top 10 fastest TTK builds here that I would recommend for Warzone 2, whether on a Sheikah Island or in Al Mazrah. Really comes down to personal preference, which one you want to play, but you can get the job done with any of these weapons. So that said, that is what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. Are you guys liking any weapon in particular right now within Warzone 2? Are you going to try any of these out for yourself? There were a few that definitely surprised me here. Like the FTac Recon is one you're probably going to see in a semi-auto meta. The TAQ-M absolutely is starting to get some traction as well. So those ones hadn't really considered, but they definitely statistically have a place here in viable weapons for your gameplay. So that said, let me know your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, and anything COD related. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.